Language is inherent in everything that we do in school and in society, and ELLs face considerable obstacles in most aspects of their school. Along with mastering content, ELLs are learning both academic and social English.
After doing initial research, we found English language learners experience significant challenges in the classroom. While programs have been implemented to help them, not all are succeeding. We decided to deliberate on the issue of services and support for ELLs. During our brainstorm, we determined many dimensions impact the development of ELLs as students and as individuals.
Do schools have an ethical responsibility to offer additional supportive services to English language learners?
I believe they do have an ethical responsibility because I think that all students should have equal opportunity to excel in their academics, and language is like the first step to learning. And obviously we're a country of immigration, so we don't have a single universal language that everyone speaks. Everyone speaks different languages.
So yes, I do think that schools hold that responsibility. I think I think that the question is about accommodations for them.
And considering, especially in the Bay Area with our demographic and all over the country, the U.S. is a melting pot, and we need to adjust ourselves to that so that every student has the same opportunity as the next.
I think private schools have an ethical responsibility based off of the fact that they're not run by public institutions. I don't know public institutions. I would say that I don't think they have an ethical responsibility per se, because I think more they have an ethical responsibility towards the students that the public tax money goes to, so the United States students. But I would say that schools should have a program in which they help students who do not speak English well.
Should there be services available? Yes. I think if it's possible for the school district to do it, is for them to provide a tutor, translator, whatever needs for at least the first couple of weeks, to give them perspective, to give them an idea of what the class is doing, what the teacher is talking about, etc. So I think I'm sure there's a need for it.
I do think that they have an ethical requirement to do so, but I already think that there's some programs that are doing so for the kids.
Because I think that for those, especially English is not their primary language, they might need extra help in terms of proofreading and it's just a different they just have a different needs to in terms of the language and not just about the language but also the culture, so that they can be totally thrive in the university. Yeah.
Ethically speaking, I think it is smart for them to offer additional services, but me personally, I think that whatever country, we should at least know the language of that country.
But from the stance of, as humans, we have an inherent duty to help other humans and help people in our society and take care of each other. From that perspective, yes, I definitely think that schools have a certain level of responsibility to make sure that their students are adequately educated.
I think and for inclusivity's sake, that's usually a good call. Primary school in particular, I know there would be a lot of immigrant families who would need those kinds of support, and so especially in those formative years, I would imagine it to be particularly helpful.
Well, I think that schools definitely do have the ethical responsibility to provide extra help for non-English speaking students.
What supportive services should exist for English language learners?
Sheltered English classes or English language development classes, right? So I think that those are important. But we work within a certain paradigm around language in schools, and I think that there's been a lot of de-resourcing bilingual education.
Counselors, particular counselors in elementary school, I recall, who would be essentially just one-on-one support in addition to the classroom support. And that one-on-one support usually was a bilingual counselor that would help. It was kind of quasi-teaching, but it was more so that one-on-one attention that you might otherwise not get in the classroom when the teacher has 30 students to take care of. So these counselors, who were usually or most of the time bilingual, could just have that one-on-one support. And even if they weren't necessarily doing any kind of lessons planned with us, just the ability to connect with someone on that one-on-one basis that could switch from English to Spanish and kind of guide you along the way was something helpful.
Should definitely be a level of testing involved to make sure, or to see where the students are at with their English speaking level. And I think that the schools should be providing a free form of after-school programming to help them learn English, or to see where they're at and to adjust the material according. So probably at the lower elementary school level, besides providing after-school programs, also that geared towards non-speaking students or non-English speaking students, also during school. Providing extra time to them, or having a teacher assistant who is well equipped in that area to help guide them through the class lesson, so that they are following along just as well as English speaking students.
Probably night classes for English communication. I also had the presumption that all United States people do speak English and it is a norm. I would say that is, in the current state of the United States, that is how it is. But I think as times change, I feel more of these programs will come up.
And like a solution, I think, would be like English learners classes, and maybe like for people whose first language is a different language than English, maybe like classes to help them learn. And like for languages that they don't have teachers that speak that language, maybe they can come up with like a online program that could be universal, like in all the public schools, that everyone could use for whatever language they speak.
So the more schools can do to support children whose home languages are not English, the better for the kids and for their learning. And even if it's not about the language, it's about their identities too.
Yeah.
And how they feel they belong, the way that they feel schools support them, how they feel like they're seen and valued by the institution that they come to every day, that they at that point spend probably more time in than they do at home awake, right? So so it's not just about them being able to becoming literate, in terms of reading and academic skills, but also knowing that they are part of the fabric of this country.
Like text to like translated like texts, so that they can like read what like their classes are about, and then also like they should have like access to like tutors who help them like within like the language divide, or also like advisors that can like show them like ways to like deal with being from a different place within languages.
Whether it's an absolute separate class, I think mainstreaming is probably the way to go. As long as it's not too disruptive. But I think there should be, in short, yes, but I think it should be limited.
I think that schools should work toward teaching children who come in with a home language that's not English in those languages.
Some programs that I think that could help would be online programs, because I think that the students should take the initiative to do it on their own time. Like, it's definitely not fair that they don't have the same advantage of everyone else of English being their first language, but I think that they should make use of their own time and learning it on their own time. It shouldn't just everything be given to them like.
What are your concerns if additional services were not provided for English language learners?
So bilingual education, for the most part, is poorly conceived and it is poorly executed.
I'd be concerned that people whose first language wasn't English would be at a disadvantage, and they would fall behind and never be able to catch up to the other kids, and it would create like a disparity between levels of education and like immigrants or people who don't from different countries who don't speak English.
A true bilingual education would be bilingual, right? Not English only. And there's been a lot of emphasis being put on the development of English in the bilingual classes rather than the development of multiple languages at a time, right? Simultaneously, which, you know, with all the research that's been done, we know that children are developmentally ready to learn multiple languages. So there should be no problem with that, except that there's a political problem. And the political problem is that there are people who are fighting for English only all the time. Right? And so English becomes a part of a political issue rather than an issue just of language.
I'd be concerned that there's an unfair advantage, and well, there would be an unfair advantage, and I just feel like it's so hard for them.
My concern is that they'll fall behind. It's pretty clear that they definitely will fall behind. They will not be able to read by the second, third, fourth, possibly even fifth grade. They'll be disinterested with school, and that just perpetuates a whole series of pipelines that we don't need in society, that we don't want in society, and that's unfair for these children.
It's a constant battle for English to be the main to be the official language. It's not actually, right? Like, it is in practice, but we also know that we are living on the land that is basically stolen, right? So what right do we have to impose language on every other immigrant who comes into this country? Mm-hmm. You know, that right is undermined by the fact of colonialism.
After deliberating and analyzing our interviews and research, we came to 3 broad solutions with specifics in each category. These 3 categories are in-class support, outside classroom resources, and federal and state policies.
Some examples of in-class support we came up with were tutors, one-on-one counselors, and translations of texts.
Some examples of out-of-class resources we came up with were online classes, night classes, and teacher training.
An example of federal state policies we came up with would be supporting the creation of grassroots policies where each state takes into account their unique demographics.
One solution is not better than the next. In fact, all of them should be considered when thinking about how to best support English language learners in the classroom.